This is a classic blues and R&B podcast.
Everybody else a chance. Yeah, my work is these new songs. They're incredible. I should get some kind of something, even though it's nothing for it, but I should get something. They say, dude, that work is impeccable. How did you come up with all this? And I'll tell them, well, it's by the grace of the Most High God directing me and giving me the opportunity to think and reach for these ideas or making them available for me to put my hands on. Some of these songs are these are classic tunes. I mean, every album I make is good, but I think this one here surpasses even the last. And the last one was so good, it's hard to, I didn't think I was going to be able to top that one.
Oh, you're talking about the album that you're working on?
The one I'm working on, yeah. I mean, I didn't think I was going to be able to top my first one, which I did with the second one. And then the third one surpassed both of those. And now these three here, should have me in some kind of stratosphere that's unavailable to regular niggas where they can't breathe the air that I'm breathing. This is how I feel.
Okay.
There are a lot of guys that are probably good writers, but because some of them feel they have to be restricted to playing blues or something like that to have the radio, play their songs or the record companies, say, well, you got to stay here. You can't stretch out and be as expressive because you got to write something that kind of makes sense to the genre that you're trying to stay relevant in. And for me now, I still enjoy the blues, but I'm not going to focus on it as much because I'm trying to reach a younger demographic now, because if I can get more younger people to listen to me than the ones that do already, that's going to open me up to other markets or other people who say, oh, wow, he plays all kind of stuff. Did you hear that? That's kind of like got a rock sound to it, or that's got like a reggae sound to it. Just music. You don't have to feel like you got to go into the idea of thinking I got to come up with 10 blues songs. I'm just going to write something. Whatever it is, that's what it is. And I'm going to endorse it. So whatever it is to whoever's listening to it, that's what it's going to be. But I'm not going to, be trying to write a bunch of shuffles or my idea of a blues standard or a blues tune just to, satisfy or pacify people. Now, if they don't know you by now, as long as you've been in the game, then they ain't going to never know you. And then you should just give up trying to live up to what they think you should be and just do what you want to do, sink or swim. Because like I said, I'm too old to worry about what other people think about what I do. If I was 20 or in my early 30s, that might be different. But right now, I'm just going to do what I want to do and let the chips fall where they may.
So what did your first three albums, what were they?
Well, my first album, like anything, living in Chicago, the home of the blues, quote unquote, and having all these friends that I have known or met, it just made sense to write something and reinforce myself as a blues artist to a lot of the people in the radio industry that didn't know me as a blues artist. They might have known me as I was associated with Cicero Blake or some other things that I've done that wasn't really exactly blues. Cicero's was blues, but it was him, it wasn't me. So my first point was do something that's really friendly to the blues market, and that album was definitely that. So my second album, I wanted to be a little bit more contemporary.
What was the name of your first album?
I'm in the business. And then the second album, I wanted to get a little bit more contemporary because I got a lot of people who were saying, well, wow, you sound like Robert Cray. And I said, well, that's like Faces. I mean, that kind of voice lends itself to a lot of different black men, young or old, because that's just a voice that's part of that thing. He sounded like O.B. Wright maybe to somebody, and so it wasn't any conscious effort to mimic what he did. I liked what he did, but it was no conscious effort to mimic what he did. But I guess when I used the Memphis horns, that's what really drew the comparisons, because now I was using the same horn players that he kind of made hit records with, and the music was similar because our voices, the tone was similar. You know, he's a better singer, but still, you know, the tones are great. So similar, I mean, you know, very close to one another. And you know, I'm pretty good myself, you know, but he's better. And I think most people would agree that he's probably one of the best R&B soul singers, period. You know, but like I said, I'm pretty good too. But I don't go around, you know, thinking that. I let other people say, hey, they enjoy my voice, they like how I sound. So but with that just encourages me to keep writing and doing things the way that I enjoy doing them, because they seem to like it too. Enough people tell me that for me to believe that it's true.
What's the name of your second album?
Colorblind, featuring the Memphis Horns. Andrew Love and Wayne Jackson, both deceased now, from the Memphis Horns.
And how did that do for you? Your third CD is called what?
My third CD is called Trying to Make a Living Playing My Guitar.
Okay, I thought you said that was your first one. What was the first one?
No, I'm in the business is the first.
I apologize. Right, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and prematurely, I think I have several titles for this new one. I think I'm going to call one of the albums Life on the Road. One of the three albums that I'm recording now. The other one is going to be People in America. And the third one, I think, just because I want to, for the laugh's sake, Boy, turn that guitar down.
Okay, boy, turn that guitar down.
Boy, turn that guitar down. Your boy's so loud. Turn that guitar down, boy.
I guess that's what your parents told you as a kid coming up.
Oh, yeah. Well, not only that, you go to the club, you hear that all the time. Man, tell that boy to turn that guitar down. You got that guitar so loud, can't hear the boy singing.
Yeah.
You know, so that's just a common thing. I try to always, you know, use stuff that people are very familiar with, like trying to make a living playing my guitar. Everybody that's in this business is trying to do that on their instrument. It just so happens most of the guys I know, myself included, we play guitar. So trying to make a living playing my guitar. And that was easy for people to relate to and get, oh, man, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we're talking to Sam Cockrell, a musician, artist. He's a singer, a writer, and he's a bass player as well as other instruments that he plays, but he more or less is a singer, and he plays his blues, bass guitar. And we're talking to him.
Well, I would say, I'm sorry to cut you off. I would say that most guys that play a particular instrument, not all, but most, and I'll use myself, we play, I play piano, I play guitar, and we do it from a songwriting perspective. I mean, I can play guitar well enough to play behind somebody, you know, the rhythms and stuff, and the same thing with piano, but I'm not good enough to go out and promote myself as I do on the bass, because that's my main instrument. But I'm good enough to compose and work with somebody and show them what my ideas are, opposed to not being able to articulate myself on those instruments.
Now, you made a statement that you didn't want to try to continue to play blues and all of that. I don't think your stuff is the traditional blues. Don't get me wrong when I said not blues.
It's not.
You know,
it's
therefore, go right on. Let me continue with my question. So why would you say that you was going to get out of the area? Because I think your music can be contemporary as well as, you know, classified as the blues, rhythm and blues, definitely.
No, I think what I said was I'm not going to focus so much on it being blues-type music, because at this point, all of the people who are the talent buyers from here, overseas, they know my records, they know what I do. So I don't want to continue to do the same type of thing. I want to grow. I want to show other aspects of who I am. Now, whether they like it or not, I want to be able to show other aspects of my personality. I want to write songs about other stuff, just as we're adults, about, chasing women and pussy. You can't write about that all the time. You're younger, you do that, but you got to write about social issues, which my last album dealt with a lot of, and real issues about real life. And sometimes those are the kind of things that people don't always want to embrace because they want escapism. They want to get fantasy. If I had $1 million, if I was rich, if I was this, I want this. So a lot of escapism is what people sometimes tend to gravitate toward, and I don't have a problem with that. But for me, at the end of the day, what did he really say? What did he write? Was anything that he wrote compelling? Did it make people think? And sometimes, some guys are not interested in that. But for me, I've gone through the cycles, so I would see myself progressing if I went back and started talking about chasing women again or how many women I want. That's not mentally where I'm at now, even in real life, you just get to a point to where what you used to have an appetite for, you don't now, and your priorities change, So I'm just more interested in allowing more people to see more sides of me as a writer, singer, person. What's going on in my mind, what I like to, what I want to talk about or what I choose to talk about. And why, like the song title I just told you, People in America. It's about America, people in America, not the majority, not the minority, all the faces that make up the people in America, not just white, not just black, because the tendency to look at one or two types, that's not America. America's a melting pot. So the song was about that. Let's talk about everybody that reflects what America really is, and not just white folks or black folks. And typically white folks, usually, if you watch TV, 99% of the shows are them. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there are other people in this country, that make this country work, but the representation is not equal.
All right. You're listening to Classic Blues and R&B podcast here with Mr. Sam Cockrell. He is a musician, bass player, singer, and all. He's a native-born American here, and so glad to have him here on. This is the second podcast we've done, Miss Sam. And we'll continue to do.
I think so, and I think it's important for people to hear you in more of an adult context, like what we're talking now. I mean, I'm never trying to shock people or say anything vulgar, but, at 62, soon to be 63, God willing, there's just certain words in our society that we use sometimes publicly, privately, that people act like it's so taboo, but it's just sometimes just trying to get a point across or something expressed more so people to understand what you're saying. I mean, like I said, I don't knock any artist. Everybody has a right to do what they do and feel what they feel. But if we all did the same thing, there would be nothing different, and people would be extremely bored. I don't think there's another artist that kind of looks at things the way that I do, being a bass player and looking at how the landscape is set up, especially if we talk about the blues, because the guitar for many, many years has been so dominant along with the harmonica. But the way that I do it, I think, has a tendency to attract a lot of younger people because it's not the typical thing that you hear, which is very good, but sometimes you gotta mix it up. And if every other song is some guy playing a blues solo, which it is, you might get tired of that. You can't do a bass solo on every song, and I wouldn't even dare try doing that. I might do one solo a night. We do 3 sets, and that solo is special because I'm not overdoing it. And people say, why don't you do more? I got a band. I don't need to do all that. I got guys that are great players. They got something to say, and when you get enough of all of us, You don't need to just hear me or just this guy all the time. It's a band, and everybody should have a part to play. And if they feel like they're a part of it, then they're going to be better at performing, opposed to just feel like they're backing me up and making me look good or whatever. So, like I said, it's just the way people think about things. You know, I just never really wanted to be like anybody else. And I understand there are risks involved when you try to go off the grid or try to do something a little different. But again, if nobody did that, everything would be pretty much the same. We got a lot of different types of music, and people like what they like.
Yeah, when you speak of being a musician, a blues musician, and using that term and talking about the different kind of music that you're doing, I got a new CD from this young man. He's getting a lot of promotion behind him. He is a good artist.
What's his name?
He's in his 20s. He's about, I think he's about 20, maybe 25. A young man.
That's a good age. So that's a good age.
Yeah, but anyway,
he's just coming into manhood in his 20s. So, his perspective will be like mine was when I was at that point. But, by chronological numbers, I'm an old man now. I'm 62. So, you're gonna feel different and just think about things differently if you grow anywhere along the process of your journey.
But anyway, the point I was going to make is that I got a brand new CD. He's with Alligator. His name is Chris Stone, Kingfish Ingram. And all
I know who that is. Yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah, he's a good musician. And the young man, what he did on this album, I just got it the other day, called 662, which is in northern Mississippi area code, anything northern. And he, I was listening to him. I said, people talk about blues. I said, now what this young man has done, he got rock and everything else on here, but he also is playing blues on here. He has a blues cut. He has there's different cuts that will, grab whomever would like it, and it's a very good CD that he has, in the song, the titles of them. 662 is letting you know that's from Clarksdale. That's where he's from.
Right.
The Mississippi Delta there.
Yeah, I know that area.
And he got songs called "She Called Me Kingfish." Well, that's more or less it's a blues song somewhat, But anyway, Long Distance Woman. We got these different songs on here. But the young man, when he's playing, I'm listening to him. I said, you can't just put musicians, and you shouldn't. B.B. King didn't just play blues. B.B. King played music.
Yeah, but he always said they never liked him, though, because he wasn't a purist. Yeah, well. And that's why he did what he did. He always said they never liked him like they accepted Albert King. Mm-hmm. But B.B. King surpassed Albert King in terms of fame, and I would have to say money, because I think he did bigger things. And that don't make you better, but I'm just saying there's different roles that people want to travel in, and much like B.B. King, I felt the same way. You don't need to be put in a box.
Right.
You can still be a blues artist, which he was.
Right.
But he wanted to do other things, and he did.
And that's what you should do. It's like Ray Charles. You can't box Ray Charles.
Yeah, but Henry, a lot of people don't have the ability to say that. Now, like this young man you're speaking of now. Now, I don't know the credits, but I'm pretty sure he's probably writing most of the stuff. But see, here's the thing: his songs have to be approved by the label, and see, my songs don't have to be approved by them because I'm independent. And that's the thing. So if the label don't like what you playing, you got to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Because they're still promoting him as a blues artist, regardless of what else he might have on his album. Mm-hmm. He's being promoted as a blues artist. I've seen his promos, and like I said, he's really good, But like I said, at this point, that's where they're trying to mold him, and he can't be a rock player because they won't let him.
Yeah.
Because that's a different money thing, and they don't want that. They want to keep him where he is. He'll make a decent amount of money, and plus, he's getting a lot of notoriety. But again, like I said, he's 20-something. I'm 60, and guys my age, we're 60. We felt like that at one time, before we got into the blues, when we were doing what we were doing. But like I said, the business end of everything is different as time goes by. Look at the basketball players. Look at Michael Jordan. the money he did make compared to the guys that are making money now. And he was a far superior player, but the times didn't allow him to make that kind of money that they're making now. So it just depends on when you get in the game or when you get your opportunity. You know, things are better now. There are more opportunities for guys to do things, and there's more money available for that.
Yeah. Anyway, Boo Mitchell was the engineered by Boo Mitchell, and it was recorded at Royal Studios in Memphis. You know, Willie Mitchell's son, Willie Mitchell's boy.
Oh, so what he recorded that in Royal Studios?
Right, Royal Studios in Memphis, and it was engineered by Boo Mitchell.
Okay, all right. Well, LC, we got things in common. I recorded in that very same studio, but with Boo's father, Willie Mitchell. So I mean, you know, like I said, there's certain parallels and things that are going to be common because it's just the places are the same. The people in the places will change. And like I said, Chris Stoner's coming up 40 years after me. And other guys my age, he's 20-something. I'm 60. So 40 years ago, he wasn't even on this planet.
Right on, right.
So you know what I mean? So those things are going to happen, and you know, you just have to accept it. That's just the way it is. I'm happy for him and anybody else. But for me now, I know that I need to be happy. I don't need to be doing something to make somebody else happy. I need to be happy. If I'm happy on stage, the audience is going to be happy listening to me because I'm going to feel good about what I'm doing. I'm not forced to play something just to get my record played. I don't believe in or whatever. So, you know, it's good. You know, you got consequences with your actions. I like where I'm at, and it's not about money. If I get lucky and make money, that's great. If I don't, as long as I get to play music the way I want to do it and work for the people that I want to work for, nobody telling me what to do, it's a success for me.
Right. He also did additional recording over in Nashville at Switchyard Studios over there.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I think the additional recording by Mike St. Leon. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what. But yeah.
Well, that's interesting that you said that because you say he's with Alligator, right?
Right.
Okay, so you just kind of watch a little bit. Now, we kind of talked about this before. Some of the artists that were on Alligator prior to some of the guys that are on there now, and you look at what they're doing now for the amount of time that they were with Alligator, because I think most guys that are on these labels, especially like those labels, they're not going to ever get rich because the record labels are there to get rich. They've proven that with the artists that we've seen over the years, you know, Little Ed, Jimmy Johnson, Lonnie Brooks, Shamika Copeland, and so many others that are probably okay, but the money, real money, is that with the record company because they own the rights to these songs. You know, they make the artists sign some of these deals. Maybe some of these guys got lucky and signed better deals, but for the most part, history shows that the record companies have always taken advantage of the artists and wound up owning all of their material and took the lion's share of the money. So if somebody wants to replicate that and follow those tracks, then I'd say that they really haven't paid attention and don't care about growth or residuals as they get older to the point to where they can't play. I don't want to be one of those guys. I'm not better than anybody else, but I don't want to make the same mistakes that those other guys made and then ask myself, why wasn't I paying attention? I own my songs. I own the publishing, so that means that they'll have to come to me and negotiate a deal if they want to do business. And that's all you ever want is a fair shot, you know. If they take the bigger risks, then they deserve the bigger piece of the pie. But you'll have to tell me that because you can't steal nothing because all my paperwork is intact. That's what I always say. If these young players today got their paperwork together and they're got people representing them and looking out for their best interest, then they're going to fare well, you know, in the music business, as long as it's thriving.
Yeah, I noticed a new trend too. A lot of more established artists are getting off labels too. I was looking at.
Yeah, you know why? Because they realize that they have more creative control, and they don't get the money. They don't have to share the money or wait for them to decide how much they're going to give them. When you sell tickets at a show or you sell CDs at a show, all that money goes in your pocket. The guys at Alligator and other record companies, they have to return a share of those sales because the company has to make the CDs, and rightfully so, they should get paid for that. Mm-hmm. But when you're an independent, you control all of that. See, you don't need a record company was good before the internet because they would be able to get your record in all these places you could never do. But now you can download your music and be in any country in 5 minutes if you got the right hookup or get the people working for you in these places. Then you don't have to sign a contract and give away all your money or give away all your music. And that's why most record companies now are trying to sign guys because they're losing out now. They're not making the kind of money they used to because nobody wants to be with a record company now.
Now, how does that work? Say, for instance, I'm an artist and I want to record something. So I just go into the studio and record my stuff, and I take my masters and go home. And
let me give you an idea.
Okay.
I'm gonna use, like they say, art imitates real life. I'm gonna give you an example of how the music business works in the movies and in real life. There's a movie that I know you've seen called The 5 Heartbeats.
Right.
So Big Red was a record producer. He was a black record producer, but he wound up burying those guys in debt. That by the time any money came around, they didn't make any because he said, "You owe me for the clothes, the recording time. You owe me for the musicians. You owe me for the promotional parties. You owe me for this." And plus, I own the name. I own the songs. So see, they didn't learn nothing right away. But then when they broke away from him, the character Duck, played by Robert Townsend, started writing the songs. He got to be a millionaire once they broke up, and he just became a producer. If you watch the end of the movie, he was writing hit records and receiving Grammys and all this kind of stuff. But then if you look at the movie The Temptations, when Otis first got started with the woman that was their manager, she told them, showed them a bunch of money. She says, "Oh, this is my money. All the studio time, all the the car, the name, everything, I got it. Y'all don't own nothing. I own you." The name, and Melvin said, "Oh, can she do that?" He said, "I don't know." So that comes from a lack of education or finding out how you control your assets that you have before someone just takes them from you. So you can be one of those guys and continue that cycle. And sure, it's nice to be on a record label and have your face on the magazine or on the radio and stuff. I've done all that. And at the end of the day, it's not going to make you rich. It's going to feed your ego. But when you're done and it's all over with, what do you have to show for the time you were there? Now, if some of these guys would tell you the truth, and they probably never will, you would find out what really happened, because they was on these labels and they still doing these gigs. Some of them are paying $400, $500, or whatever, and you think to yourself, well, wait a minute. How did you go back to that after you were an established recording artist? Did you build up some equity or some kind of, cred to where now you got a track record? You got to go back and play for the same money I'm playing for? Because I'm an independent, so I don't have a team working behind me like that unless I put that team together. So basically, the record company is like college, and they'll send you to college to be a doctor. But after you get through with college, you so much in debt, you're going to spend the rest of your life paying back that money And you'll never reap the benefits of the money you make as a doctor because you're so far in the hole. And that's what record companies do. They get you so far in debt that you can never possibly ever repay that debt. And so at the end of the contract, you leave there with what you came with. Nothing.
What is the average length of a contract? A year? 3 years?
Well, that varies. You know, it all depends. You know, like I said, some guys will sign a 1 year with an option. A record company has an option to pick you up or drop you. Some guys, if they really think highly of you or they figure they can make a fool out of you, you might sign a longer contract. So if they can manipulate you and get you to the point to where you don't feel nothing else is going on, most guys will sign with them because they figure, I best do this than do nothing, because otherwise, you know, you're not going to have much to look forward to. But again, like I said, I've been lucky enough to be around these kind of things, never made the money I could have made because early on, like those guys, I didn't know nothing. I had to learn the hard way. They stole my music, you know, and when that happens, you get smart. And then you learn to not to trust anybody and understand that when they need to come to you is because they realize that you've secured all the doors, and now they can only come to you and say, hey, Sam, we like your song. We want to offer you a deal. We want 80% and give you 20, and we'll give you X and X and X. So then now you have a choice. You can make a decision now because you own the material. You go to a recording studio and you don't buy the masters, they own it. That's why Prince was in such a big fight over the years. Warner Brothers owned his masters, and therefore they owned his songs. So he didn't like that. So he fought, changed his name, and decided to re-record all his songs on his own masters. So now he owns the songs, but he had to do all that work all over again because I guess he was under the false impression that those songs belong to him.
Oh, well, obviously.
I mean, you know the story. You know what happened. Yeah. He wrote Slave on his face and fought them for a few years before they finally renegotiated his contract. But, you know, he said he thought that, you know, he had made a good faith deal to find out that he got screwed, you know. And so sometimes you have to get burned in order to learn unless you learn from the mistakes that were made before you and say, look, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't make me better, but I'm going to be better prepared because I know what you did to this guy and that guy. So I'm going to secure my music in case you want to do business with me. You'll have to come to me the way you would anybody else, the right way.
So always amazed when I read the story, and I heard him say it out of his own mouth. Ray Charles, he said, and I agree with him on his statement when he made it. He said, I will do this with you. I want my masters, and they did it on the handshake.
He was one of the only artists at that time, and on top of it, he was a black artist. But you know why they did that? Because they knew he was an iconic artist, and they was going to make millions regardless if he owned the masters or not. Mm-hmm. That's why they relented. But he was smart, and he built his empire.
Yeah.
From owning his masters in his music. Right. Because he was a genius.
Right. Yeah.
And they knew that. They couldn't let him get away, so they went ahead and made a deal. Sometimes they'll make the deal because they don't want nobody else to have it.
Yeah.
That's why he left the guys that had it before at Atlantic, because they couldn't match that deal, and they told him go ahead. They were proud of him. But those were guys that were pretty honest and decent. But you don't find that all the time, man. You know, and he got lucky that he was able to secure that deal, and he went on from there and just broke all kind of records over there at I think it was ABC Dunhill.
Well, ABC, and he had his own label, Tangerine. You know, he had that
right.
Too,
but that was a subsidiary through ABC. He made them foot the bill for it, and they did it just like Prince did with Paisley Park. Warner Brothers was behind Paisley Park before they realized Prince wasn't really doing nothing, and they cut Prince off, and Paisley Park was no more. But Prince didn't produce no hits like Ray Charles did. Ray Charles was producing hits.
Yeah. And one thing Ray said, and I agree with this, he said, I'm not sure if his mother did it, and she may have said it to him. He said, you ask a fella what it is you want to ask the fella, and the fella has a right to agree or disagree. And I really believe in that, Sam. You may tell me you want $100 for something. I said, well, I'm going to offer him $75. Well, you might say $75 is really a good deal for you. And so we agree to that, and if you do, you do. And if you don't, you say, okay, then I can't get it, that kind of thing. I believe you should always ask for what you want. You may or may not get it. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it.
You're right, but see, we had this conversation before. Number one, you have to figure out what you're worth to the thing that they want you to do. Now, if they think you're only worth $50 and you want $100, then you got a decision to make. You can cave in and, help them out and do it. But now they got you to the point where they know you'll cave in, you'll settle for less, and you won't say, hey, look, you know what, I would love to do it, but unfortunately, I don't see myself as a $50 player. And if I start there, I'm not going to be able to get away from that. So you're going to have to find somebody else, and then eventually they're going to most likely call you back and give you the money. They're going to test you, but like I said, you get what you can negotiate. See, I don't do nothing that I think is beneath my standard. If it's a friend of mine, I'm going to help him out because the understanding is I may need your help. But if it's somebody else, I say, look, I'm not trying to gut you. I don't need to know what they're paying you. But in order for me to be up all night and do 3 sets, this is what I got to have. And I'll explain it to them, which I shouldn't have to. This is the money that's going in my pocket, and this is the money I'm going to put in my car to get me from A to B, because I don't want to use my money that I'm working for to pay for the gas to get to your show.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you have to have an idea of what you're worth to yourself, and then if they agree, they do. If they don't, then they'll move on and they'll find somebody else. Many times when I've turned down work, I told them I can't do it, and they said okay. And then later on, we should have paid you, man. The guy that we got was horrible. I said, man, well, you get what you pay for. So don't complain about that or tell me about it because it's irrelevant to me. I wasn't there. You knew what I wanted, and if you couldn't afford it, then, you have to think to yourself, it's your gig. How important is this gig to you? Do you need to maybe take $50 from your money to make sure your gig is going to go well because you can count on me to come in and do the job, otherwise you wouldn't have called me in the first place?
You're listening to Classic Blues and R&B here. I'm your host, Sir Henry Cheatham, the Magnolia Blues Man. And our guest on this edition of our Classic Blues podcast is Mr. Sam Cockrell, a musician, a songwriter, producer, and a singer. And we're glad to have him join us here on this edition of our Classic Blues and R&B podcast. Sam, now, and the records that you produced, they were produced all by you, or was there ever someone else who produced you?
No, I think, again, going back to one of our earlier conversations for the sake of your audience, it's real important, that when you get involved with a project, that you don't have too many cooks in the kitchen, because unless those guys are on the same page, it's not going to work. So basically, when I work with somebody, it's understood that my word is the last word. So I'm in the seat, so there's really nobody else there to offer up an idea or an opinion, because usually I go in there already ready. You can go in and all of a sudden something can come up that you might not, that doesn't sound like you thought it would, and somebody off the cuff might come up with something. But for the most part, it's me at the end of the day and the beginning of the day. If I don't like it, it doesn't get on tape. So, I'm always willing to listen, but you got to have a good idea already, because if you listen to too many things, you're not going to have nothing concrete because you're just not solid. So I go to the studio with the idea of already knowing what everything is supposed to be like, and we get the job done from there. I don't particularly like working with other people unless we've had time to really talk, because, like I said, you know, your idea and my ideas might conflict, and when you're spending money like that, you don't have time for that. So that's the reason why I produce my own albums.
No, that's good. Sound good. And what was your most successful album? You call them all successful? You know, all of them are successful because somebody bought it, right?
Right, but it's hard to say because with all the downloading and streaming, and there's certain things that I don't know that might be occurring with the record. I mean, even as we speak, I don't know. I think probably because of the pandemic and the fact that we haven't played in almost a year, I would probably say the first two, because I was traveling all over the world with those albums, and I was all stateside. So those two albums have to be more productive and probably still earning money. The new one, well, which is not so much now, I recorded it in 2015, it's probably earning too, but the other two albums have seen more places in the world when we didn't have a pandemic, when the business was flowing, when people were coming out, money was being readily available, and I was traveling like all the time. You know, I was very rarely here in Chicago. So I would say that I'm in the business and colorblind are probably financially more successful because I've had more time to tour on those albums. This album here, the last one, I think is better in terms of who I am as an artist today, you know, with the kind of things that I'm doing. It's more reflective of who I am, who I've morphed into, you know, going from a young 20-year-old to a 30-year-old and now in my 60s. So I think this is pretty much who I have become now. When you listen to Trying to Make a Living Playing My Guitar, that's pretty much the direction of most of the music that you might hear coming from me.
Now, when we came on the air, and I think we were on the air when you said it, I'm not sure or not, you were talking about, you think that when you look at the current album, that your CD or what have you, that you're working on, you thought that it was some of the best music going, and you think that it ranks very high there on the new music writers list. And so, tell me about it.
I do, and here's the reason why. Because, like I said, usually if people get to know you because they're playing your record on certain radio shows that particularly might be blues shows, because, you know, my record has been played on some rock and R&B shows, but mostly these type of shows are about the blues, and blues, like I said, it's so many different facets of blues that when people say they don't like blues, you have to look at them and scratch their head, because if you don't like blues, you don't like contemporary soul music, because that's all blues is, really.
Right.
Everything is based on blues. So I look at, when you hear a good band play blues, R&B, and maybe something else, you're getting a good feel for that artist, whether it's a man or a woman. That person's kind of well-rounded, opposed to going someplace to hearing one thing maybe good all night. Even though it's really good, you might be surprised and say, wow, I didn't expect to hear that. That's really kind of cool. You know, I didn't think these guys, you know, had that in their bag. So when people see me for the first time, they're blown away by that, because, you know, 90% of the audience in the venues that I play are white. So they know the blues, but they also love classic rock. And they also love soul music, and they love Motown. So when you can give them what they came there for, blues, and they hear all this other stuff, they're very impressed and going to remember, and they buy your music, and you started to develop a fan base with those guys. and then all of a sudden you start seeing them at your shows repeatedly, and now that tells you what kind of music you need to keep doing in the areas that you're playing. Now, if I was playing in more black areas, I think I would pretty much still do the same thing that I'm doing, but I would probably do more Johnny Taylor or ZZ Hill or something like that, because at the end of the day, you want to give the people what they came for. Our people, that's what they love. And then some of our people love the R&B classic rock stuff. But the core people, black people, they want to hear good rhythm and blues music, and they love Motown. So when you can do those kind of things, you can always find a place to be at and entertain people and not have them bored, because you're going to be able to give them a little bit of something. If this ain't working, jump to that. And if that's working, keep doing that. So that's one thing that I kind of think that gives me a slight edge, or guys that play the same way that I do, is that when you can go and get a diverse audience and then they can come and hear a diverse band, that's a good combination.
Yeah, okay, we're going to wrap it up on this, Sam. I want to ask you.
I would say anybody that's getting on stage and bearing their soul, man, you know, they're great, because it's not easy to do.
Well, that is true. I agree with you on that. Whatever area you are, when you're on there and you're out front, it is you.
Yeah, people are watching your every move. If you show any sign of weakness, they're gonna turn on you.
That's right.
And if you got it together, they're gonna jam with you.
They say, "Oh, I didn't think he could do it, but hell, he's doing all right." You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think you know this. I don't think you mentioned to your listeners on the podcast, which was just funny because of talking about moving away from the blues a little bit, not abandoning it, but moving away. You know, being a Chicago Hall of Famer, you know, you think that would be a very helpful thing, but I don't know if it is or not. It's a nice acknowledgement, but I don't really know if it is or not, because, you know, if you use that and then in the turn around and say, well, you want to try to get away from that a little bit, and it seems kind of weird that you're working against being that. You know, it's something that, you know, is bestowed on you. But at the same time, I appreciate the honor. But I want to let people know there are other sides of me: blues, soul, country, R&B, adult contemporary, and anything else that might pop up. If it's something that entertains people, then I'm probably thinking about doing it. But I have to feel that I can do it well enough to play it in front of people. If something's popular and I don't sound well doing it, I'm not going to do it. You know, I have to be able to feel good that I'm delivering it in such a way that people would like it.
I understand very well what you're saying when you say you don't. And the whole thing is you're not moving away from blues. You just don't want to get locked in that, okay, wait a minute, I can play country, so I play country. You know that because this is what I came up with.
Blues is the main reason, you know, why we're talking, and all the things that I've done is because of the blues. But on the other hand, you know, you don't want to get locked into one thing.
Right.
You never know anything more about the artist, because all he or she ever did was that. They never got outside of that box to play anything else, to expose what else that they could be or what their other experiences in life are. And like I said, you know, there are a lot of things about me that people know when we meet or when they see me or when they hear these kind of conversations that they might not have known.
All right. Well, I want to thank you very much, Mr. Sam Cockrell. This is Sir Henry Cheatham.
My pleasure, Sir Henry.
Yeah, this is Sir Henry Cheatham here, the host of Classic Blues and R&B. We're on every Saturday night on VON 1690, WVON.com, and on iHeartRadio. We want you to like our Facebook page at Classic Blues and R&B. Follow us on Twitter at WVON Henry and at Henry_Cheatham. And kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Henry CB. We appreciate your support because this is it's always good to have people who come on who does this stuff and can share with you, and that's what we're trying to do. I got an interview coming up. I think what the hell is it? I got an interview coming up. I'll be interviewing Bobby Rush coming up on the what the hell is it? on the 9th. That's coming up soon. He'll be talking about his book. You know, Bobby Rush has been around a while. He's almost 90 years of age, 87, I think they say he is. And he has his book out, I Ain't Studying You. Now, being a Southerner, I know exactly what that means.
Ought to be interesting.
Yes. All right, until next time, I want to thank you all for joining us here on Classic Blues and R&B Podcast. I'm Sir Henry Cheatham here, and thank you again. Thanks for joining our podcast here on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to us at HenryCB6175. Follow us on Twitter at WVON Henry, and like our Facebook page at Classic Blues and R&B.